Americans for Fair Taxation presents the Weekly Chairman's Report, written by Steve Hayes, president of Americans for Fair Taxation, and recorded by Bob Paxton, a volunteer with the Florida FAIRtax Educational Association. And now, this week's Chairman's Report.
Hello, I'm Bob Paxton with the AFFT Chairman's Report for Friday, April 24th, 2026. The FAIRtax makes buying a home much easier. The income payroll tax system directly reduces Americans' ability to purchase a home. In contrast, the FAIRtax makes it easier. The FAIRtax replaces all federal taxes on production with a single transparent retail sales tax on new consumption. Now, the FAIRtax is designed to be revenue neutral, meaning the federal government will collect the same aggregate revenue as under the current code, but they'll do it through a mechanism that taxes what's taken out of the economy, consumption, rather than what's contributed to it, work, savings, and investment. Now, the primary constraint for the prospective homebuyer in the current economic environment is having to save a standard 20% down payment while facing high rents and stagnant real wages. Under the present system, a worker's ability to save is significantly hindered by the combined impact of the employee's share of FICA, 7.65%, and an average effective income tax rate, usually about 10 to 15%. The result is that approximately 20 to 25% of every dollar earned is lost before it can even be considered for savings. That means that a worker must earn 20 to 25% more than he needs in order to net what he needs for that down payment. Under the FAIRtax, workers receive 100% of their gross paycheck. And you can save a lot faster when you bring home every penny you earn instead of having 20 to 25 cents of every dollar you earn taken away from you before you even see it. Under the income payroll tax system, the returns on those savings, interest, dividends, and capital gains, are all subject to annual taxation, and that significantly hinders the power of compounding. Because the FAIRtax only applies to new retail consumption, funds placed at a savings account or investment vehicle grow tax-free. For a household needing a $30,000 down payment, the ability to save from a $75,000 gross salary rather than a $57,000 net salary drastically reduces the time needed to accumulate the needed funds. The FAIRtax essentially allows first-time buyers to pre-fund their housing equity using dollars that have never been touched by the federal government. Now, the income payroll tax code drastically increases the price of new homes. Every component of a new home, from the raw timber to the structural steel to the architectural services and, of course, the final vertical construction, it's all burdened by embedded taxes. These hidden costs include the corporate income taxes paid by material suppliers, the employer's share of payroll taxes for construction crews, and the massive compliance costs associated with navigating the Internal Revenue Code. When a builder purchases timber, the price of that lumber reflects the upstream tax liabilities of the timber producer and the mill operator. These businesses must recover their tax costs through higher prices, a phenomenon known as tax pushing. Research suggests that these embedded costs can represent between 15 and 25% of the retail price of new goods. The FAIRtax removes these costs by untaxing all business-to-business transactions and eliminating the corporate and payroll taxes that currently drive up the cost of production. While the FAIRtax would be applied to the final sale of a new home, the base price to which that tax is applied would be significantly lower due to the removal of these embedded distortions. For example, if a new home currently retailing for $400,000 contains $80,000 in embedded taxes and compliance costs, the removal of those costs brings the producer's price down to $320,000. Applying a 23% tax-inclusive FAIRtax to this lower base results in a final consumer price that's competitive with, or even lower than, the original price, but with the added advantage that the buyer is paying with gross, untaxed dollars. The transparency of this system ensures that the true cost of funding the federal government is visible at the point of sale rather than hidden within the price of the home's framing and foundation. This transparency creates a downward pressure on government spending, which will further stabilize the long-term cost of living and property ownership. A critical distinction within the FAIRtax framework is the treatment of previously taxed property. The fair tax only applies to the first retail sale of a new product or service. Consequently, the sale of an existing or used home, which constitutes about 85% of transactions for homebuyers, is entirely exempt from the fair tax. This creates a massive economic incentive for entry-level home ownership. Under the current system, a buyer of an existing home must pay for that property using after-tax earnings. This means that for every $1,000 of mortgage payment for principal, the buyer must earn at least $1,125 to net that $1,000. Under the fair tax, the buyer receives 100% of their earnings to purchase a property. This double benefit, untaxed income plus untaxed property, dramatically lowers the threshold for home ownership. Now, the affordability of home ownership is directly linked to the cost of mortgage financing. The fair tax is projected to have a profound deflationary effect on the market interest rates. Under the current income tax regime, lenders, that's banks, credit unions, and private investors, they all must charge an interest rate that provides a target risk-adjusted return after the payment of federal taxes on the interest income they receive. By eliminating the tax on interest income, the fair tax removes this tax wedge that inflates lending rates. Economic studies from Rice University and Boston University suggest that long-term interest rates would likely drop by approximately 25 to 33% following the enactment of a consumption-based tax system. If the prevailing market rate for a 30-year fixed mortgage is 7%, a 30% reduction would bring that rate down to 4.9%. Furthermore, the fair tax effectively treats mortgage interest as being paid with pre-tax dollars for every American. In the existing system, the mortgage interest deduction is only available to the roughly 10% of taxpayers who itemize their deduction, and its value is limited to a reduction in income tax. It does not provide relief from payroll taxes, and most Americans pay more in payroll taxes than they do in income tax. Under the fair tax, because workers receive 100% of their gross pay and interest is untaxed to the lender, the entire mortgage payment is facilitated by the full value of the worker's labor. This provides the equivalent of a supercharged mortgage interest deduction that's available to everyone, including low-income workers and non-itemizers. In conclusion, in addition, under the fair tax, the roughly $11 trillion held in IRAs and 401k plans, currently subject to income tax upon withdrawal, would become tax-free when withdrawn. This would provide a massive immediate windfall to millions of Americans, many of whom could use those funds as a down payment for a home without the income tax payment associated with current early withdrawals. The fair tax is the answer. The fair tax is a national retail sales tax on new retail goods and services. It provides a family credit so that all purchases up to the poverty level for each family are not taxed. There's no withholding from your paycheck, and you'll never have to file a tax return again telling the government how much you earned and how much you spent. Plus, you'll never be harassed by the IRS ever again because the fair tax abolishes the IRS. Now, many of you have labored tirelessly for freedom from the federal income tax and the IRS. You deserve a great deal of credit for your efforts to educate the American people on the need to fund the American government in a way that's good for America and returns freedom to the American people. It's imperative, though, that we don't replace the current income tax and the IRS with an alternative system that can still be manipulated by the ruling elite. We must let Congress and the President know that the best way to replace the income tax and the IRS is with the fair tax. Now, make no mistake about it. The fair tax is a grave threat to the ruling elites. It will strip them of their power and their ability to control us through the tax system. Their opposition to the fair tax will be fierce and unrelenting. And don't think for an instant they won't use half-truths, deception, and downright lies in their desperate attempts to hang on to their power. However, with the support of this president, we can finally eliminate the income tax and the IRS. Of course, the best course of action is not only to repeal the income tax and abolish the IRS, but to repeal the 16th Amendment as well, so no future administration can ever shackle the American people with an income tax again. We must come together and ensure that real tax reform, the fair tax, is not subverted by the elites in D.C. This will take the diligent effort from all of us. We need your financial assistance, and we need your grassroots assistance. Now, if you have contacts that will allow us to get more information about the fair tax to President Trump, please let us know. Please email us at info@fairtax.org, and we'll give you some options on how you can best help us. At a minimum, please call your congressional representatives and ask if he or she supports the fair tax. If so, thank him or her for their support and suggest they become a co-sponsor of H.R. 25 if they're not one already. If not, ask why not. Now, if your representative claims to be unfamiliar with the fair tax, offer to have someone come to their office and explain it to them. The solution? Pass the fair tax. Now, why would D.C. pass the fair tax and give up an almost unlimited source of donations? Well, they won't, at least not voluntarily. The only way they will is if the rest of us demand it. Isn't it time to end this ludicrous tax collection system and the IRS along with it? Help us bring about real tax reform and stop future IRS abuses. By contributing or investing $10.40 a month, you help provide a financial base to Americans for fair taxation. Now, if you can make larger contributions/investments, these will be used not for salaries, as we're all volunteers, but for the needed updates to our economic studies, which will be vital for all future years. Please go to FAIRtax.org to invest in AFFT and help us pass the fair tax. It's an investment in your and your family's future.
This has been the Weekly Chairman's Report, written by Steve Hayes, President of Americans for Fair Taxation. Check back every week for news and information about the fair tax, and learn why the fair tax should replace our antiquated federal income tax system. If you'd like to receive a copy of the Chairman's Report in your inbox every week, sign up at FAIRtax.org.